The first round Stanley Cup playoffs matchup for the Colorado Avalanche is officially set. And for a team that has had a Band-Aid roster for what feels like the entirety of the 2024-2025 season, it feels like at the perfect time, everything is going to come together in an amazing manner and get this Avalanche team ready to rock and roll in what is going to be an electric and historic first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to dive into all the implications around this first round matchup for the Avs, as well as how everything is coming together at the perfect time and, quite frankly, in the perfect way for this Avs team to make a deep run in this year's 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, before we do so, I want to remind you to make sure you're subscribed to Avs Digest here at Digest Media, your exclusive one-stop shop for Colorado Avalanche news. We give you all the latest news, updates, opinions, and everything that you need to know about the Colorado Avalanche. If you're not subscribed, exit out of this video right now, hit that subscribe button, give us a like as well. Make sure that you are set and ready to go and subscribed to the best source to get your daily Colorado Avalanche news right here on Avalanche Digest. Let's dive into the first round matchup for the Colorado Avalanche, where they will face, you guessed it, the Dallas Stars in the first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the 7th postseason series against the Dallas Stars for the Avs. It's the most of any for an Avalanche opponent in the postseason. The Avs have faced the Detroit Red Wings 6 times, but the 7th appearance this coming playoffs in the first round, where the Stars will have home ice against the Colorado Avalanche, is the 7th all-time matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. It's going to be a very exciting series. Obviously, a series that we've seen a lot, and a team that is not only a large rival of the Colorado Avalanche, but it's also a team that, we've struggled to face in the postseason. We take a look at the series last year. In the playoffs last year, the Avs were able to beat the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs, but they moved on to play the Stars, and it was a hard-fought series, a hard-fought battle where the Avs kind of figured things out midway through the series, but they were unable to, unfortunately, scrape out the series win over Dallas. Dallas would then go on to lose to the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Final, and the Oilers would move on to a quite unorthodox Stanley Cup final where they would go 0-3 in the first 3 games to the Florida Panthers. They'd bring it back to 3-3. It was on track to be a historic championship comeback in not just hockey, but all of professional sports. But Florida was able to edge out the 4-3 Game 7 Stanley Cup final win in a 2-1 regulation win over the Edmonton Oilers. But either way, Dallas loses in the Western Conference Final after getting through the Colorado Avalanche last season. So the Avs win the first game last season, a tight overtime win. Miles Wood scoring the game-winning overtime goal in that first game. But I do remember that game, watching that playoff game against Dallas, that first game specifically. Dallas was all over us. They were playing very strong. They were playing all over the ice. They were shooting pucks at the perfect times. They had a lot of hockey IQ going on, and it was definitely a daunting game. The Avs were able to obviously scrape out a Game 1 win, but the Stars would then go on to win back-to-back-to-back Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4 against Colorado. They would beat they'd beat the Avs at home 5-3, and then they would win both games in Colorado, where the Avs had home ice, but it wasn't able to help, where the Stars would win 4-1 and then 5-1. So a lot of just tough games where the Avs could not figure it out offensively. There was a lot of depth issues and a lot of lack of scoring opportunities. And an issue that loses some light in the conversation of this specific playoff series is in Valeri Nichushkin for the Colorado Avalanche. He was buzzing in the early stages of the playoffs. I believe he was leading the playoffs in goals with like 9 goals at the point that he was at in the season. And then due to personal reasons, he goes back to the NHLPA and leaves the playoffs mid-series essentially, which is not only a tough locker room concept to swallow for the Avs, but you're losing a unit of an offensive player, someone who is all over the ice, knows how to play with this team, is a strong aspect of the depth in the Colorado Avalanche, and most importantly, he knows how to score, and we saw that in the early rounds of the playoffs last year. So the hope is that Nichushkin can stay healthy and the Avs can continue on in this next year of the playoffs and hopefully get through the first round. And I know that there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of confidence around the Avs to do so, but it all depends on them staying hot and then staying healthy. Taking a look at the end of this 6-game series, the Avs actually did figure it out in Game 5. They had a very strong, dominant performance over the Dallas Stars in Dallas. They were all over them and were able to get a 5-3 very strong win and bring things back to Denver for a Game 6. And in that Game 6, it went scoreless through the first period, and then here's where things get interesting. In that Game 6, Mikko Rantanen, the former Colorado Avalanche Stanley Cup champion, 10th overall draft pick, and played for the Avs for about 10 years, scored the first power play goal for the Avs to go up 1-0. And then the Stars would go on to tie it shortly after. Then, after one full period of overtime and a goal that was called back for goalie interference in the second overtime, Matt Duchene, the former Colorado Avalanche, who was traded mid-game to the Ottawa Senators, would then go on to the Nashville Predators and finally land himself in Dallas, would score the game-winning goal to send them to the Western Conference Final. So what's interesting about that is obviously Mikko Rantanen now playing for the Dallas Stars. So him having moved from his former team, Colorado, and now to face us in the first round, that is going to be a massive weight on both teams' shoulders for Mikko Rantanen to try to perform and do well in the playoffs against his former team, and for the Avs to show off the depth that they've gained since the Mikko Rantanen trade and try to stay as locked in as possible for this first round matchup. So a lot of history within this matchup. The Stars have never reached the Stanley Cup final without going through the Avs. They've had 6 postseason meetings. The Stars hold the 4-2 advantage in those, with series wins in 99, 2000, 2020, and most recently, as we know, we just discussed it, 2024. And another extremely relevant topic around this Dallas Stars team is they are potentially without Miro Heiskanen for the first round. He went out with a gruesome knee injury earlier in the season after a controversial collision with Mark Stone, the captain of the Vegas Golden Knights, who have also clinched a berth in the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. But here's a quote from Pete DeBoer, the head coach of the Dallas Stars. We're obviously all hopeful that Miro will be out there for Game 1, but whether it's Game 1, Game 4, Game 7, or the second round, if the Stars are to make it there, the reality is we're going to have to play without him at some point. And if he's in the lineup, he's not going to be at playoff speed because of what he's gone through. Either way, we're going to absorb or continue to absorb everything that he does. So the Stars are fully aware and understand that Miro Heiskanen is potentially not going to be on the ice, a very strong defenseman who went in the 2017 draft right next to Cale Makar. He was the 3rd overall pick. Cale Makar went right after the 4th overall pick, and Cale Makar obviously has gone on to be one of the best defensemen in the league and could go down to be one of the best defensemen that the NHL has ever seen in history. So for the Stars to not have Miro Heiskanen, that's a huge implication as to whether or not they're going to be able to play at the same speed that they usually do. Obviously, they've been without him for a few months now. They're still playing very good hockey, and they have assets such as Mikko Rantanen, who they acquired recently, that is going to help them out in the long run as well. And speaking of, we've touched on this a few times, but it is extremely important to note that Mikko Rantanen will be playing the Avs in this playoff matchup. He comes back to his hometown team for the second time that they've played each other, but for the first playoff matchup. This is just an insane implication. You think about the original trade where he got sent to the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this is obviously heartbreaking for Avs fans to see a franchise player, a 10th overall draft pick, a point-per-game player, and quite frankly, someone who's recognized league-wide as one of the top 10, 15 players in the entire NHL. You see him get traded to another team. That's heartbreaking. it's a hard pill to swallow at first, but then you kind of think about how things are working out with Marty Necas and Jack Drury, and most importantly, Mikko Rantanen plays for a team in the Eastern Conference, where the Avs only play that team twice a year, and seeing that team in the playoffs, the only instance that is possible is in the Stanley Cup Championship. So the amount of times that we would be seeing Mikko Rantanen on the ice and that we'd actually be playing against him, it was very slim. The Carolina Hurricanes, obviously a great team, potentially a Stanley Cup contender. We could see them in the Cup this year. If Rantanen were to still be on the Hurricanes and the Avs were making it to the Cup, that would be a different story. But where things get interesting is when Rantanen then got dealt on the day of the trade deadline to the Dallas Stars. So now you go from Rantanen playing for a team that the Avs see twice in the regular season and would only see in the postseason if it was the Stanley Cup Championship. Now you have a Rantanen on a team that the Avs see 4 times in a year, and it is extremely likely that they see each other in any round of the playoffs, because they've seen each other in the playoffs 7 times now. Last year it was in the second round. This year it's in the first round. No matter what, these two teams are going to be strong hockey teams and playing well in the coming years and in the future. So it's very likely that we're seeing them in the playoffs facing each other quite frequently. So definitely an interesting storyline that Rantanen will return to Colorado. And the question kind of gets raised as to how much nerves there's going to be around Rantanen playing his former club, how much that series win for Dallas is going to mean for Rantanen. And then you look at the other side. You have a Colorado Avalanche team who, as I've said a few times, has been such a Band-Aid roster all year. They've had such strong players in and out of the lineup all year. And the lineup is actually starting to look the best that it's looked all season going into the playoffs. Are they going to be able to prove to the NHL that they're built different and that they can get through a really strong Dallas Stars team that has their former Stanley Cup Championship teammate Mikko Rantanen on it? And one piece of the puzzle that might insanely help the Avs do so is, of course, my captain, Gabe Landeskog, is all over the NHL media world right now. He just had his second game in the AHL with the Colorado Eagles, where he has made a miraculous recovery, playing in a conditioning stint with the AHL affiliate of the Avs, the Eagles. And in that second game last night, he netted a goal. He scored with the AHL, which is massive for his progress and his morale and his confidence as a player who's trying to suit up for the 2025 playoffs with his team, in which he has not played in the NHL since 2022. So he scored a goal in the AHL game against the Hartford Silver Knights last night. He had points in both nights of the 2 games that he played back-to-back, in which the Eagles won both games against the Knights. So a massive update for Gabe Landeskog. This has to be a huge morale boost for him, as well as the whole team. Lots of players in the barn in Loveland supporting their captain, Gabe. MacKinnon, Makar, Devon Taves, Josh Manson, Ross Colton, and a few other on the roster who are taking some breaks with the remainder of the season closing out. They're supporting their captain and getting excited for him to potentially make a return. Now, it's obviously not guaranteed. I personally think that he is on an extremely strong upward trend, and he's going to be able to make a miraculous return for the playoffs. Not necessarily sure if he's going to be playing at playoff speed, but something that may be getting swept under the rug a little bit that's a really important topic to kind of remember. He is the captain of this team. He's around in the locker room all the time. He won a cup with this team. He has worn the C for years for this Avalanche team. To have him back in the locker room, in pads, in gear, with his skates on, playing with the team, wearing that C, that is a huge implication and something that is going to motivate this team to play the best hockey that they possibly can in the 2025 playoffs coming up right around the corner. Lots of implications to consider here. The Avs and the Stars meeting in the first round of the playoffs. The Avs play their last regular season game today against the Anaheim Ducks, and then it is cup or bust, baby. The first game of the playoffs will either be April 19th or 20th, and we'll see if the roster for the Avs and the morale on the team can get them through the Stars and all the way to a Stanley Cup final.